We're going to do something a little bit different today, and it's going to be new, and we're going to try to do it at least weekly. If we don't do it weekly, we're going to do it bi-weekly. We kind of want to do it around current events and what's going on. So we've got Steve here and Nick. Say hi, guys.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Bottom line is we're going to go through a current event. We're going to try to look at some of the things that people will, kind of vilify it often, or maybe there's a myth or misconception about that current event. And then we're going to break it down into facts, and then say, how does this actually help us when we're doing financial planning? What does it really matter? So a lot of times we see these things over and over in our social media feeds. We see different little articles, we're getting emails, and the bottom line is it doesn't really mean anything to us unless we actually apply it to what our personal situation is. So this week, we're going to talk a little bit more about the stimulus checks that we're getting. It's very important, but I think it also outlines just the basics of planning of if you get a little bit of cash, what should you do with it? So tell you guys a little bit more about us personally as a firm. Steve's going to throw up a little bit of an image here, but we're real simple, guys. We're a fiduciary, full service financial planning firm in the city of Brighton. We work out to kind of like Heartland, a little bit north of Heartland area, all the way down to the Ann Arbor area, all the way over to, we've been finding the kind of that Northville, Plymouth area. So we cover those areas. We primarily work with a good portion of our business is with the kind of that retiree, pre-retiree. So if you're in your kind of late 40s, 50s, all the way to that 70. But we do have the ability to obviously work with anyone that we get a couple things that we ask them. If they're passionate about, building their wealth, if they're serious about building their wealth, and they want somebody, a partner to build with them. So you could be really any age on that spectrum, because we have a lot of younger people that are entrepreneurs that we do work with, and they meet those qualifications. So do you guys want to go through some of the things here that you think that kind of makes us different?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really makes us unique, John, is we're a family office. I mean, it's personal service. If you call, you're not going to be trapped in voicemail. You're not going to be talking to someone that you don't know or trust. So we really get to know you, your priorities. It's not just about numbers. It's about you, where you are in your life and what your priorities are. We get to know those. And when you call up, or you're in a meeting, it's going to be one of us, and you're going to know us and trust us. And that's just a big difference in today's world.
I also think one of the big differences as well is that we are holistic. We are full service, meaning a lot of different firms out there, they may manage money, but maybe they don't focus on asset protection. Or if you need estate planning done, they may or may not have someone as part of their team that can help. The same thing with your property and casualty insurance, your home, your auto, your liability. We have someone that we work with as part of the team, or someone that has been a resource with us for an extended period of time that we recommend for clients to talk to. So we are truly full service. Like Steve said, family office. It's going to be very, very focused on you and what's important to your goals and objectives.
Which is important, guys. That's basically what we just described was a fiduciary. So whoever you're working with now, or if you're looking to get a second opinion, make sure who you go and talk to is truly a fiduciary. They're not just a money manager that skips everything else in between. They're not associated with any broker dealer. So the first question I would ask is, who do you work for? Who's your custodian? Do you have a broker dealer? So you kind of get the feel for. And if they say, yeah, my broker dealer is X, Y, and Z, right then and there that technically speaking, they're a registered representative of that company. So enough about us. Let's get into the topic of the day. So Steve's really dived in deep. So you guys might have actually received your check. You might not qualify for your check. And in the email that I sent out to our list, we had talked a little bit about the idea that this is not just for those people that got, $3,000 or $4,000, whatever the amount that they got is. If they have any excess cash, this is also a really good conversation for them. So if you don't qualify for the stimulus check, don't worry about it. because what we're going to talk about is going to be the same kind of information that I think would be very important to somebody that says, hey, I've got $5,000 sitting in my checking. I got $50,000 sitting in my savings account. I've got $100,000 sitting in a money market. All those are going to apply to this conversation. So Steve, how do you actually qualify for this? Who's going to get it? What are some of the things that maybe they aren't going to get?
Well, I'm sure most of you have been following this, the CARES Act. There's a lot of good news in there. Most people are going to qualify. This is it's basically an advanced tax credit for next year's taxes. $1,200. You're an individual making $75,000 or less, you're going to get the full $1,200. So a married couple, $150,000 or less, $1,200 each. $500 per qualifying child or dependent. There's a few loopholes in there based on if you're 17 but you're not claimed and you're still a dependent and things like that. But basically, most people are going to get this if you're 75,000 or less for individual. If for some reason, because this is based on 2019 or 2018 tax filing, so if for some reason your situation's changed, maybe you made a lot of income last year, but this year you're not because of everything that's been going on, or you had another child. Since this is an advanced tax credit, if you're not qualifying now, you can actually qualify for next year. You can't get it now necessarily if you don't qualify, but you will get it next year because it's an advanced tax credit. So that's all really good news.
Yeah, that's great. What we were talking a little bit before this, we had said, what were you talking? You were mentioning how you may not. Oh, if you haven't done the tax, if you haven't actually done the ACH to actually get your check, so maybe you're missing your check a little bit. What are some of the things they can do to go and actually get that? Make sure they get that check faster.
So you're going to get it. Many people have already gotten it. I saw the other day that my wife and I are supposed to be getting ours this week. We went onto our bank account and said that deposit was pending. So the way to get it the fastest is if you filed online. So if you had a direct deposit set up, the IRS, that's the account. Now, there are little glitches. Maybe you changed your bank account, or maybe you had a tax preparer file it for you, and there's been some glitches. But if you have an account set up for direct deposit and it's the same account you have this year, you might have already gotten it, or you're going to be getting it pretty quick. If you don't have that set up, if you didn't have direct deposit, or you hadn't filed last year, or the last 2 years, you can go on. The IRS has set up a website, and they've also partnered with TurboTax. This applied to my son. He hadn't filed because he hadn't had income. He's young, so he went in, and he's not a dependent. So he went in and set this up through the site that TurboTax and the IRS had partnered with. Put in his direct deposit information. He's already gotten that $1,200 check. So you can go in and set it up if you haven't, and you can get that check electronically very quick. The paper checks, they say, is going to take a few more weeks, or maybe even a little longer.
So we're gonna post a lot of resources on this. So wherever you may see this recording, underneath it, we'll have 3 or 4 articles that we've went through, and we feel they're actually very important and very informational. So we will share that information without sitting here and boring you guys for on the different loopholes. But they're out there.
They're always getting money. Getting money is not boring.
I want to say one thing too, because this is applying to me. I didn't, I owed money in 2018, and I have not filed 2019 yet. So when I go to get my payment to put in my direct deposit info, what I get is payment status not available. And it says, according to information that we have on file, we cannot determine your eligibility for a payment at this time. So just anyone that's happening to, and I have seen it all over Facebook that it's not just me, because of course I got nervous, and but I have heard from my CPA and everything that it's just, you're going to end up probably getting a paper check. So like Steve said, It's going to take a little longer, so just be aware that it doesn't disqualify you automatically by any means. It's just you're going to have to be patient and wait for a paper check.
So I got that check, or I have a chunk of money sitting in my account. Maybe it's some new dollars based on some of these different programs. Maybe it's just a relief check. What do I do? I mean, from the base of it, from the most simplest terms, what am I doing with that check that I just received? What would you guys say that the first most important thing that anyone might want to do?
Well, the experts, including us, I mean, the first thing you want to do is, if you need it now to pay bills, that's what you use it for. I mean, that's common sense. I mean, if you need it to buy groceries or your whatever has been going on, that we would recommend that as the first. If you're okay right now with that, not just for the very short term, because things are they're uncertain. So if you're really certain you're not going to need that in the next short while to be paying bills, then you might look at starting an emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, this is the perfect time to start it. As you see, these things come our way, and if we're not prepared, they can really take a toll. So either add to your emergency fund or start an emergency fund if you don't have one. If you're sitting pretty for whatever reason and you had a nice, your bills are being paid, you had a nice emergency fund set up, we would say this would be a time to put away for retirement. Or maybe if you have a son or daughter who's getting, you're saving for college, save it. College, retirement, maybe you got something else really important you've been saving for. If you've met all those needs, some people right now are looking at maybe even donating that to, right now there's so many needy causes, for PPE equipment, for feeding kids that are out of school. There's all these charities starting right now. You might even look at that if all your other needs are being met.
So that was a nice review. Let's pull back and kind of go through kind of each one of those in a little bit more detail. So for example, I remember last time we just talked about this call, we were doing some pre-planning. We said, you get that check in the mail, and even if you have bills to pay, maybe you don't even pay your bills yet. First thing is to kind of look around and see what's going on and see how long you're going to have where you're not going to maybe even have any income, or maybe you're having a hard time getting some of that unemployment. Okay. So you might want to go and make sure you talk to all your credit cards. Make sure you talk to your auto companies. Maybe you talk to your mortgage company and see that maybe there's a reason for you. Maybe not. Maybe you're just going to kind of go tight and just kind of get by and figure it out. But there may be a reason to defer some of these payments. But Nick, you were talking about the forbearance. Maybe make sure when it comes to the mortgage forbearance, that might not be as good as it looks.
Right. Yeah, no, I looked just so I knew for clients and whatnot. And what I found, like with mine, is I can do a forbearance and defer for a few months, 2-3 months. But once that is over with, those payments, they say they'll work with you to spread out what was skipped, but you still owe them. It's not like they're going to add them to the end of the mortgage, which is kind of hoping what we were talking about. We were hoping they were going to do is they were just going to say, okay, if you skip 3 months, we're going to add 3 months to the end of the mortgage. Most mortgage companies or most lenders are not willing to do that.
So technically it's all due right at the end of the forbearance period.
Correct. And that's why, like for most clients and, even for us, it doesn't make sense to me anyway, because if you've got the cash, pay the mortgage, don't worry about it. And that way, you don't owe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 after 2 or 3 months of forbearance because you didn't make those payments. I was also, I don't know if you guys knew this, I was also made aware today that there is a program that, as far as car payments, you can skip 2 or 3 months. And from what I understand, it's a federal program. So that's something that you should be aware of. If you are having trouble and you have 1 or 2 car payments, talk to your lender, whether it's a credit union or a bank, call them and say, hey, listen, I was made aware that this program's out there. Can I schedule 2 or 3 months of skipping payments? And they add them to the end of the loan.
So this is for,
if you're like me, that probably you've never missed a payment in your life, and
Right.
it just comes.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
But this is the time that it's out of your control. That if you
Correct.
need to, there's nothing wrong with seeking out and asking for a little help, especially if you are like me and you've always been, so conscientious about making every payment you've ever owed. That's just the way most of us are. But right now, I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to ask or to. I think if you have a long relationship with a lender and they know you've never missed a payment, you're always on time, I really think they're going to work with you.
I think that's a good point, Steve, because I was just going to say the idea that if you're in a position where you've been someone that's just always paid their bills and you almost feel like you don't really need to defer anything, maybe this month, maybe you look and you say, you know what, I'm going to give myself a month because I want to assess what this impact could be. This could be a bigger impact on all of us than we can even imagine. And so we want to kind of plan for a worst case scenario and then slowly build up from there, right? I mean, we can't just say, oh, this will be done in the summer, everything will be fine.
Right.
Not everybody. I know a guy that's a very successful restaurateur, and he is in a world, I mean, his whole world changed within just a few weeks.
Right.
I mean, he had to shut down. His whole thing is not designed for carry out, and he's not getting any of the triple P loans. He's having a hard time getting any of the financing. He is like, his world has changed. This guy is very successful, doing very well by himself. And I almost guarantee he's one that's going to say, hey, Bank of America car company, let me defer a couple payments. Like, I know I probably can figure it out, but you know what? I'm going to figure out how to buy some time. And then when the dust settles and you've done some planning, then at that point, now you've got a much more clear view. And you might say, yeah, I guess I didn't need to defer 2 months, but who cares? You know what I mean? Like right now, we might be in a world of hurt. So
make it a priority to take care of your family and yourself first right now, financially, because it's just so uncertain. I think that's what John's saying, and I totally agree with that.
So if you can get past that point where you're like, okay, I've kind of got my bills taken care of. Steve had mentioned doing an emergency account, which hopefully we all had one, before this all started, but life comes at you fast and you might have just used some of your couple $1,000 emergency fund to do something just a couple months ago for some other reason. We don't know everyone's situation. Or maybe, like we talked about, we'll get into, but maybe you've got $50,000 or $100,000 sitting there. So still stay with us if you're in that position, because obviously we're just going to continue to go down the rung. But the main thing with an emergency account is to know what the amount is that you're trying to achieve. Okay. So everyone has kind of different points of view, and we can get into it if we want today, but the bottom line is having that number and making sure that you sustain that number. So if your emergency account is $12,000, then make sure you got the $12,000 sitting there. And I don't care if the market is on sale. I don't care if somebody says, hey, I want you to buy this business, or hey, could you please help me out? I need $5,000. Like if your emergency account is $12,000, then stick with it. You don't go down underneath that unless it is an emergency. So invest in
like a revolving line of credit. It's there when you need it, you use it, but you get that money back in there as soon as you can.
Well, and it's interesting, John. You brought up, everyone's situation is different. We've got a lot of people we know and a lot of clients that don't have as much as maybe they should in the emergency fund. They've got $5,000 or $10,000. For a lot of people, that may only be 1 or 2 months worth of bills. And from that perspective, taking a step back when you first get that stimulus check and maybe skipping the 1 or 2 months of car payments and just having that extra $1,000 or $2,000, it could be a very good thing for you, because now you can take a step back. Like John said, you can assess and figure out exactly how long is this really going to take for me to recover, or me to go back to work, or for my income to go back to where it was, or even close to where it was.
And again, I mean, it might be something like July, it could be in August, September.
Right.
You could be very seasonal where you're waiting till the next winter before things actually turn around for you. We don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
so the emergency account in our firm, when we do our agile planning process, it's the first chunk. It's to kind of go to the bank and take $5,000 because I need to do X, and that's going to help me save either a ton of interest or save my job or save me from not, having poor credit, for example, not making payments. And then the second tier that we have is that kind of that 2 to 5 year bucket that allows you for those larger purchases that are necessary. So that you're driving around in a 2002 Honda Civic, and you're like, I know I'm going to buy a new car, and it's lasting, it's doing great, right? The Honda Civics last forever, but one day you're going to need that new car. So you're kind of budgeting. You're saying, maybe I want $10,000 for a down payment on that new car. So that bucket exists too. We want to make sure we're filling that bucket. That might be at a money market. It could be with your financial advisor and what we call like an endurance income or kind of an alternative income bucket. But you want to make sure that you kind of have that bucket going for you as well. And so like Nick said, maybe you've got the emergency account, maybe you defer some of the stuff, or maybe you start getting some of these unemployment payments and your bills are doing fine. Make sure you stick that surplus in that second bucket, which will set you up for the next 2 or 3 years where you're saying, you know what, I think I might need a car, or my daughter is going to need that final college payment. And she said that, I said that I would do it for her. And obviously we wouldn't do that unless we were in a good position to do so. But you're earmarking some of these larger chunk payments for that, that intermediate time frame, we call it, that 2 to 5 years. So make sure you don't forget about that emergency part of your bucket. Then the next thing we talk about is when we fill that part out, we actually we don't necessarily, one thing that, Steve, we didn't talk about and you kind of skipped over a little bit is protection for the family, right? So we know we got the emergency bucket. We know we've got kind of that intermediate term bucket. The next bucket should really be, and probably maybe even before intermediate, is like, do we even have health? Like, what's going on with our health insurance? You know what I mean? And do we need some money for that? What's going on? Do we have enough life insurance? Did we just lose our job that was giving us a $300,000 policy and now is gone? We just lost our job. Our job was giving us a $300,000 policy, and now I walk away, and me and my family, if I were to pass away, that $300,000 is not there. So we want to make sure you're protected. So go through all your property and casualty, which seems like, Nick, we've been talking, and Steve, we've been talking to all of our clients right now, really a lot about their property and casualty, making sure they're getting the best rates that they're getting, making sure that they're protected. So make sure you go through all of those insurances. Those are the boring things that we hate to talk about, and we feel like they're a waste of money until something happens, right?
Well, and there's also, as we've seen with clients over the years, a lot of people, like my mom as an example, was with AAA for 50 years, shopped around, but never really seen anything that saved her money. And it was just a timing factor. And all of a sudden, she shops it around with our resource and was able to save her like $400 or $500 a year and actually better the coverage. So now's the time when everyone's really trying to cut back and try to save money. Please, we're here, we're a resource. Please let us know if we can help you.
Yeah. So once we get through protection, then we get to what Steve was talking about, and maybe you want to share some of your thoughts on is we're well taken care of. We've got the emergency account taken care of. We got the intermediate term bucket taken care of. We're protected. We've done our protection planning. And hopefully you're working with somebody. Again, we've always said, we believe everybody needs a partner to actually get this done. So sometimes you got a husband and wife team that do really good. That could be your partner. I mean, that could really be it. It's usually not that easy. You kind of need that third stool to be that unbiased source of information that says, so you guys have lived this way for the last 30 years. You're always kind of thinking the same way. Let's make sure. Did you forget about this? Okay, let's make sure, right?
I've
So
been
the
married
next thing would
32
be,
years, so yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
right? And so you got to add a partner in the mix. And as a partner to our clients, we would say, I think you're in position to actually invest some of this cash that you have. So again, wherever we came up with this cash, if it happens to be the stimulus check, that's awesome. That means you're doing very well. But you might also be like, hey, I just added a stimulus check to an account that I already have $50,000 in this money market, and it's not invested. What do I do? You know, the market's going way down. Now it's going up. Like, what do I do with that money? And the bottom line is your probably next step is to invest for the long term, for retirement, generally speaking, but you're going to invest it for the future. So when it comes to that, guys, what do you guys think about that? And what are some of your thoughts when it comes to investing that paycheck?
If you're talking about investing your stimulus check and whatnot, I mean, one of the first things, Steve mentioned a while back, hey, think about college planning if you've got kids coming up, or think about retirement. One of the first things we would talk about when it comes to retirement is if you have a 401k or if you're already saving into an IRA, look at things like a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is an after-tax contribution, but when you pull money out, it's all tax-free. That's a huge advantage right now if you can start taking advantage of something like that.
I can think this might be probably one of your only opportunities, because the stimulus money is tax-free. So you'd actually be putting in
good call, Steve.
Money
Good call, Steve.
into a Roth and then draw. It'd be the only money that you could ever put in and that would grow, and you never paid any taxes on it.
Yeah.
I mean, think of that. That is a phenomenal thought.
Yeah, that's
Seriously.
absolutely phenomenal.
So if you're in that position where you got, I don't know, $2,400, or maybe you have a child in the house and you got a little more, and you're in the almost 3,000 to maybe 35, almost $4,000. Could you imagine that $4,000 going into a Roth IRA, never having to pay taxes on those dollars? So I think as a group, we could all say that we would say, look at the Roth IRA if you qualify.
Yep.
Obviously, if you got the stimulus check, you do qualify more than likely for that Roth. So that would be one thing to think about. But we can put it in the Roth. That's a good idea. But where do we invest it? I mean, if the market just went down 30, 35%, then it went up 20%. I mean, so like, what do we think is going to happen? I mean, we're in a weird time where the market just went up about 20% off the low, some even more, and we have 22 million people that are unemployed. I mean, it's a really kind of an odd time when it comes to investing. I'll give you my thoughts here in a second, but do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like where to actually invest it? Now, we're not going to give investment advice here today because obviously we don't know your personal situation, but are we buying stocks? Are we buying bonds? I mean, what exactly makes sense?
My first thought, John, was this is the most important time ever to make sure you have someone with a lot of experience that you're partnering with, because
good point.
Maybe when it looks like everything's going great and the future looks great and everything's going up, maybe you can figure things out for yourself or just you and your spouse, but things are so uncertain. And as John just recapped, I mean, this is the most important time that if you are in the position where you could invest some of that money or speak to somebody, if it's not us, somebody like us who is independent, who's a fiduciary, who will really get to know you and what your priorities are and really get some good, solid advice as a partner in your planning, because this is not the time, I don't think, to just kind of wing it on your own.
No, definitely not the time to wing it. Not with, we talk all the time about tactical asset management. I think it's very important nowadays that you have that partner that can help you. I agree with you, Steve. A lot of people think, between them and their spouse, when the market's just going up, hey, we're doing okay. We can handle some of this ourselves. But right now, it's so uncertain. I think you really need a partner that can help you.
Because there's a huge opportunity right now to what we would call kind of rebalance your portfolio. So you stole my answer, Steve. I mean, there's no way we could tell you what to buy a little more stocks with your 4,000. It's impossible. I mean, you need somebody, or you need to be doing the planning yourself and figuring out what kind of rate of return do you need to get to your retirement goal numbers. How much do you already have in stocks or equities? How much do you have in your fixed account? How much do you have in your cash account? There's so many questions. Some of the things to think about, or maybe even to Google, would be really looking at rebalancing your portfolio. What does that actually mean? And how can you be tactically rebalancing, which is a lot different than what you're going to go find on Google. You might find it, some article here and there, but make sure you're thinking about it when it comes to, yes, I've done my planning, so now I'm just going to put it in this portfolio. And that may not be the best thing either. So make sure you do your planning, make sure you're really on top of what you need as an individual and how it pertains to your long-term retirement goals, because there's just too many questions. So obviously, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to do that discovery call with you, Zoom, phone call, whatever it is. Hopefully we'll be meeting with people in person here in the next maybe 30 to 60 days. I don't know. It's kind of up in there, but it's looking like things are getting better. But I think we all just need to be a little bit more patient. So if we're in that realm of we're able to invest it there, and here's another little tidbit is RMDs right now have been waived for this year.
Right.
Something to think about. We've got an article that will tell you exactly that. That could be very powerful for some people, because they don't have to worry about doing their RMDs this year. Something you want to add, Steve?
Well, what came to my mind was our name, Agile. And what's going on now is just reminded me, and John was talking about, and we've all talked about, important to have a planning partner. That plan doesn't just sit there somewhere. I mean, it is constantly changing, and nothing has shown that to me. I never thought we would be in what we've been experiencing the last couple months. It never even crossed my mind. And so the planning, it's not a done process. It's not just, it's done, it's on my shelf.
Right.
And I'm set. I mean, you need to be talking to someone ongoing. Right now, things are changing day by day. I've been trying to keep on top of all of this, and it is changing not only day by day, hour by hour.
Yeah.
And so you really need to have an agile partner who is, that's why I think that personal part of the family office, I mean, you got to be talking to someone ongoing, not once a year we meet and have a review, or I get my statement in the mail once in a while. I mean, it's got to be an ongoing conversation. Things are just changing so fast. And
it's great point, Steve.
Never thought we'd be where we are. So that just shows you how it can happen so fast.
So fast. Like we had a client, we were working with them on long-term care planning, and that was like the topic of the day, and they were, things were doing great, the market was up, and now we're at 100% difference of like, okay, let's make sure we've got the emergency fund in order. What's your strategic asset allocation? Boom, like that fast we shifted, and we've got that long-term care now just kind of goes to number 4 slot. That's all. Just, it's still one of the priorities. It's still on the list, but it's got to be prioritized to what's going on now, and then continuously going through. And we take that macro view. So we're able to kind of step back a little bit and make sure that we're not worrying about like just what the stock market's doing right now. We're taking a step back and saying, okay, what exactly is this actually doing to me in my retirement plan? Let's run the projections again and see if it actually had any effect on you at all. So I was running some this weekend. I was running some through some of the projections, and some people haven't really been, hasn't really affected them that much. We've done a really good job tactically managing their money. They're only down a few percentage points, which would be, it's actually hilarious to say. And I looked at their equations, and they're no different. They're right on track. Then we have others that haven't necessarily implemented their plans with us when it comes to the investing. They've had a ton of cash, which is good on the way down, but it's not going to grow. So we need to figure out how to get it implemented. But we know that the market's kind of in a squirrely position. So, and that's what you're saying, Steve, is, it's not that cut and dry to just kind of print out the 12-page plan and put it on your desk and say, there you go, I've got my plan now. Just doesn't work like that.
No, not at all.
I didn't
So
say
one of the last
earlier,
things,
I was a school principal for 20 years. And when you do a plan for your school, I mean, every day is different. Every day you don't just have something static sitting on your shelf. And it's exactly the same when you're looking at your long-term financial planning. I mean, it's the same thing.
so if you can reverse it, what you would do, and this is a great tip for someone out there, is actually say, what does independent being, to me, what does it look like if I was independent of the outside forces? What's my vision and what are my goals? And then actually work backwards from there and saying, okay, what do I actually need to do to get to this point? Because a lot of people actually say, like, this is my plan and how I'm going to get to where I want to be. And it's actually like, you know what? Actually, let's look at it from the opposite. How do you want things to look? What exactly is your vision? And then let's back that out and say, what do we have to do to make that vision a reality? So, and we'll get to the last point here. I think it makes kind of sense is we have a lot of clients that are very charitably inclined. So you might be at that last part of your independence planning might be, I want to give to charity. So what better way to say, you know what, I don't really need, I got a check this year for $2,400 because of what's going on, but I've retired for 7 years. I've got a nice pension. I'm doing well. I've got some financial planners that tell me I'm on the right track. I've got some cash saved up. What can I do to actually help out during this time? So like Steve, you had mentioned, kind of the last of the ideas to do with your cash would be maybe you donate it to a charity. So, and you had mentioned a lot of
right now are serving more than they've ever served.
Big time.
And they're kind of restricted. You can't really volunteer because of social distancing, but they need the money. They need the food. It's being taxed more now than ever. You got kids not in school that maybe that was their main source. Of course, healthcare. Another thing that occurred to me, it wasn't in the article, but restaurants and restaurant workers. If there's a way you could. Some people are saying, go buy a whole bunch of gift cards from your favorite restaurant to help them now.
Yep.
You can use it when things open up, and it's really not donating it, but it's really helping out somebody now.
Yeah.
And that's another thing you could look at.
Yeah, it's a great point. Is like that's like I mean, how can you use that money and be useful? And that's a great point. I mean, if you've got friends, family, and acquaintances in these industries that have been really hit hard, maybe it's time to use their services, just as you said there, Steve. So just to wrap it up on my end, if you guys want to say something here, but thanks for spending some time with us. Again, this is a live with Agile Wealth Partners. We're going to be doing this for right now. We're going to just do this weekly. We've been doing a lot of what we've been doing is really just taking a step back and saying, how can we help people? What can we do to be helpful during these times? We're helping our clients. We're really delving into their personal situations, but it comes to a point where we want to make sure that we're spreading our message to more than just the current clients that we have. We've got a lot of acquaintances, friends, family, referrals from different clients, as well as just the general public out there. If we can get our message out to you guys, please follow us and join us for the ride. We're going to have a Facebook link in our notes there where you can follow us on Facebook, and you're going to get a lot of great information there where we post articles as well as events and just information about what we do as a firm and how we're helping people. So please reach out. We'll also have some information in there on how you can contact us, that you can contact us directly through just our calendar, or you can just contact us an email, whatever it is. We don't really care. If you got a question, please reach out. We're more than happy to help out. And again, personally for me, really appreciate you guys spending some time with us.
I second that, John. I mean, this is obviously a very uncertain time for a lot of us. And obviously the number one thing right now is take care of you, take care of your family, make sure you guys are safe. But please, we're here. We care about the community. We care about our message. We care about what people need right now as far as advice goes. like John said, we're here. We want to help. Please listen. Please reach out. Anything we can do, please let us know.
And I'd like to say, you know, we are family men. I have older kids. John and Nick have younger kids. We're going through all the same things that you are. And we just happen to really make it a point to stay on top of it and really know what's going on and what's coming our way so that we can help. We're going to link specifically for today's topic about the stimulus checks, and we're going to link an article, show you exactly who qualifies, who's getting them. If you didn't qualify this year, how you might qualify next year when you file next year's taxes. We're going to link an article that talks about some of the ideas about what we talked about today, what to do with that money. Also going to link an article with a really thorough breakdown of the CARES Act itself. So we'll have a lot of resources there for you. And we've kind of brought it all together and some credible resources to help you through this time. So this is the time to ask for help.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
See you
Sounds
next
good,
week.
everyone. Have a
Take
good
care.
week.